everybody. So this next couple series of videos is gonna essentially unpack some of the main, I think, takeaways from Chapter 6 of Handling the Hard Stuff. And this all connects with a little bit of the foundation that we've laid from last week and maybe the week before, really building and thinking about some of the detriments and of course the various serious harms that can occur with alcohol use and alcohol abuse. And specifically, these articles, and some of them are very short, focus on and engage with campus culture surrounding drinking. And there's a couple of questions that we can really tease out, I think, that will be helpful. There are some really, I think, challenging questions that we can also tease out that might be helpful, but maybe a bit tricky to unpack. And so let's start with this first one on page 117. Okay? And this is addressing and asking the question about college binge drinking. Okay? And in this article, Anderson, there we go, lady. Anderson, thinks about binge drinking. And I'm sure that, again, many of you have either heard the term, are familiar with it, perhaps participate in binge drinking. And binge drinking is interesting, where what it is and how it's defined, whether it be in this article or in the next article, is actually rather challenging. Okay? And so a couple of things to make mention of here, right? So essentially what this article does is it sets up the definition of binge drinking. Binge drinking refers to a pattern of excessive drinking in which the expectation is to get drunk rather than drink in moderation, right? And we see that and we know about that as it relates to campus culture, as it relates to potentially, as it relates to just the experience that one expects to have on and in college. Come on, lighting, come on. Where are you at? There you go. All right, let's see if I can kind of stay in focus here. In many ways, residential college campuses provide an ideal setting for binge drinking. College campuses draw large numbers, yada, yada, yada. Further, when students arrive on many campuses, they find flourishing drinking culture that places significant pressure on them to participate. Okay? And so this is an interesting way of thinking about kind of the nature of, participating or not participating in the college drinking culture, right? And so, the idea that, like, if there's pressure to conform, then there's issue there, right? If there's a whatever college campus we're talking about, and I mean we can use obviously the U of I since we all go to the U of I, right? But like, to what extent do people start to participate in the drinking culture when maybe they didn't really want to, but because of there being a pressure to do so? Okay? Drinking has been yada 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 yada. The settings for heavy college drinking are fraught with dangers, okay? From alcohol poisoning to accidents, fights, sexual assault, rape. While many students discount the risks of drinking, college officials have expressed concern about heavy drinking among college students for years. Okay? And so there's an interesting move and some interesting questions worth asking here about how to think about college binge drinking and how to think about how to address college binge drinking. And what's going to happen is in this next article on 119. So essentially, that first little bit just kind of like sets the stage, right? It allows us a space to start thinking about what binge drinking is and whether or not it's problematic, right? Because, and this is where this next article is going to go on page 119 by Doris Iorovici. Iorovici, I can't pronounce that last name, on 119, is essentially thinking that somewhat and sometimes in the binge drinking culture, there's the idea that binge drinking is okay because everybody's also binge drinking, right? And so essentially what's going to happen on 119 is we're going to dive more particularly into that article that expresses some concerns about maybe the culture that perpetuates and encourages binge drinking. Okay, so that'll be in the next video.